Have you ever caught yourself scrolling through someone's perfect life, their perfect body, perfect house, perfect morning routine, and suddenly, your own life feels smaller? Less important? Less worthy? Like no matter what you do, someone is always ahead, always happier, always more. That subtle sting you feel, it's not envy in the way we usually describe it. It's erosion. The slow wearing down of your own sense of worth. You didn't even notice it at first. But day after day, scroll after scroll, you began measuring yourself by someone else's ruler. And the more you measured, the less you felt like yourself. We live in the age of comparison. And comparison, if you don't guard yourself against it, is a thief. It doesn't break in with noise and fury. It sneaks in quietly, dressed as curiosity. I'm just checking Instagram, you tell yourself. Just 5 minutes. But those 5 minutes become 50. And when you look up from the screen, something inside you feels off. Your thoughts are heavier. Your day feels more gray. You don't know why. But Marcus Aurelius would. Nearly 2,000 years ago, he wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." He wasn't talking about social media, obviously. But he was talking about attention, about what happens when we let our minds soak in things outside our control. About what happens when we stare too long at other people's lives and forget to live our own. Marcus wasn't a recluse. He was the emperor of Rome, constantly surrounded by people, decisions, distractions. Yet his inner world remained his own. That's the heart of Stoicism, not to escape life, but to own your experience of it. Not to shut your eyes, but to see clearly, and not be shaken. He reminded himself, again and again, it doesn't matter what they do. It only matters what I do. Can you feel the power in that? In a world screaming at you to compare, to compete, to constantly check how you're doing based on how others are doing, imagine building an inner citadel that says, I will live by my own values. I will follow my own path. I will not be ruled by illusion. Social media is not the enemy. But unguarded use of it is. When you open the feed without intention, you hand your mind over to algorithms designed to stir craving. They don't care about your peace. They care about your attention. And the more you look, the more you forget how to look inward. Seneca, another Stoic, once said, "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire." We're afraid of missing out, of being left behind. And yet we chase status and image like we'll live forever. But we won't. And that's the wake-up call. You will not be remembered for your follower count. You will not be fulfilled by someone else's vacation photos. What will stay with you, when all the noise fades, is who you chose to become. You have a choice. You can let social media shape your sense of self, or you can use it as a tool, nothing more. You can scroll aimlessly and come away feeling hollow, or you can close the app and return to your breath, your values, your purpose. Every day, Marcus Aurelius reminded himself of death. Not morbidly. Not fearfully. But as a compass. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. Imagine checking your phone with that mindset. Imagine filtering what you consume through the question, does this bring me closer to the person I want to be? That's Stoicism. It's not detachment. It's clarity. It's not apathy. It's agency. So next time you scroll and feel the tug of inadequacy, pause. Ask yourself, what am I really looking for? Connection? Meaning? Validation? And is this where I'll find it? You won't find peace by staring at someone else's highlight reel. You'll find it by facing your own mind, and learning to sit with it. Your worth is not in your image. It's in your actions. It's in how you treat others, how you respond to challenges, how you speak to yourself when no one's watching. And most of all, it's in how you reclaim your attention, because your attention is your life. So, what do we do? How do we live in a world built on likes and filters and endless comparison, and still remain grounded, present, free? The Stoics didn't have smartphones, but they knew our minds. They knew the human tendency to seek approval, to look sideways at the lives of others and feel either inflated or diminished. They warned us about this long before Wi-Fi existed. Epictetus said it plainly, if you want to be happy, stop worrying about what other people think. That's not a cute quote for your feed. That's a discipline. That's work. That's a battle you fight daily, against your need to be seen, admired, validated. Because here's the truth no one tells you: the more you need to be seen, the more invisible you become to yourself. Every time you post something just to impress, every time you adjust your behavior to match what others expect, a piece of you goes quiet. A piece of you steps back, fades, waits. Until one day, you're living a version of yourself that's been edited too many times. Cropped. Curated. Distant from who you really are. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Ambition means tying your well-being to what other people say or do. Sanity means tying it to your own actions." Think about that. Every time you check for likes, every time you refresh to see if someone responded, that's ambition in disguise. The kind that chains you to things you can't control. And Stoicism is about one thing above all: controlling what you can, letting go of what you can't. You can't control how others live. You can't control who follows you, who praises you, who scrolls past you. But you can control how you show up. You can control whether your time online is intentional or reactive. Whether it feeds you or drains you. Whether you leave it feeling more like yourself, or less. Ask yourself right now, who am I when no one is watching? That's where your power is. Not in your online persona, but in the quiet choices. In the mornings you rise early. In the moments you resist the urge to compare. In the small, unseen acts of self-mastery. Because here's what Stoicism teaches us: greatness isn't loud. Strength isn't flashy. True confidence doesn't announce itself. A tree doesn't shout about its roots. It simply grows. The strongest people aren't the ones flaunting their lifestyle. They're the ones building inner peace, brick by brick, in silence. They're the ones saying no to distraction, no to drama, no to the need to prove anything. And maybe you're thinking, easier said than done. You're right. But remember, you were not born to be a spectator in your own life. You weren't born to scroll it away. To dilute yourself into likes and trends and borrowed identities. You were born to live. To think deeply. To act boldly. To feel the sun on your face and not wonder how it looks on camera. You were born for stillness. For presence. For a life lived close to your values, not someone else's version of success. When you feel yourself drifting, when the phone pulls you into the tide of other people's moments, stop and breathe. Ask, is this mine? This life I'm watching, is it mine? Does it nourish me or consume me? And if the answer is no, put the phone down. Not forever. But long enough to return to your own breath, your own feet, your own world. Seneca said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And what is social media, if not a flood of imagined realities? Do you think that perfect couple never argues? That millionaire never feels lonely? That model never wakes up insecure? Don't let someone else's best moment become the standard by which you measure your whole life. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're just distracted. And you can come back. Right now, this very second, you can make a choice, to be here. To let the noise fade. To reconnect with your own values, not because it looks good, but because it feels right. That's what the Stoics did every day. They weren't immune to temptation. They just practiced returning. Returning to clarity. To discipline. To the inner fortress they built, brick by brick, word by word, breath by breath. You can do the same. You don't need to delete your accounts. You don't need to disappear. You just need to decide who's in control, you or the feed. Because when you don't decide, the world will decide for you. And the world doesn't care about your peace. But you do. There's a moment, it comes quietly, when you realize that most of your suffering isn't caused by what's happening in your life, but by what you think should be happening. The life you imagined. The version you see in other people's posts. That ideal self who always wakes up motivated, travels often, never fails, never doubts. That image is a mirage. And the more you chase it, the more your real life slips through your fingers. The Stoics knew this trap well. They didn't call it Instagram envy, but they spoke of the same illusion. It is not things themselves that disturb us, Epictetus said, but our opinions about them. The thing itself, your life, your body, your home, your path, is neutral. But the story you attach to it? That's where the pain begins. Social media fuels those stories. It shows you 1,000 versions of how life could look, and makes you forget how your own life does feel. That's the danger. Not in the information itself, but in the narrative it whispers, you're not enough. You're behind. You should be doing more. But, should is a prison. The Stoic answer is not to rebel, but to return. Return to reality. To what is, not what could be, or might be, or what someone else makes you think you're missing. Right now, where you sit, in this very moment, that's life. This breath. This room. This body. This task. And if you can't find peace here, you won't find it anywhere. Marcus Aurelius wrote, people look for retreats for themselves, in the country, by the sea, in the mountains. But you can find retreat at any moment in yourself. Nowhere can you find a more peaceful and untroubled retreat than in your own soul. You want freedom? Learn to retreat inward. You want peace? Stop outsourcing your self-worth to strangers. You want purpose? Stop measuring your life by metrics that change every hour. You don't have to quit the modern world to live like a Stoic. You just have to stop letting the world tell you who you are. Because the truth is, nobody on that screen knows you. Not really. They see the version you present. And you see theirs. We all walk around wearing masks, even online. But the Stoics didn't care about appearances. They cared about virtue. About action. About what you do when no one is watching. And maybe you're asking yourself now, what can I do? How do I live differently when the world around me seems so loud, so fast, so addicted to image? Start with this, be slow. Be real. Be intentional. When you pick up your phone, know why. When you post, ask yourself, is this coming from ego, or from presence? When you scroll, notice your body, do you feel tight? Restless? Anxious? Then pause. Breathe. You are not a machine. You are not a product. You are a soul. A mind. A body. And you were not made for endless consumption. The Stoics practiced what they called attention to the present moment. Not mindfulness in a trendy way, but as a discipline. A muscle. A way of keeping their soul from wandering. Because they knew, the mind, left alone, drifts into envy. Into fear. Into regret. But with attention, it comes back. Like a bird returning to the hand. Your mind is yours. But only if you claim it. So claim it. Decide what you feed it. Decide what you allow in. Decide what you let define you. You don't need to compare. You don't need to compete. You need to live. To walk through this life not as a shadow of someone else's story, but as the author of your own. That's the gift of Stoicism. Not escape, but engagement. Not detachment from the world, but detachment from illusion. And in that clarity, you will find power. The power to choose what matters. The power to ignore what doesn't. The power to wake up one day, look in the mirror, and say, this is my life. This is enough. I am enough. Not because you reached some goal. But because you returned to yourself. And what you'll find there, beneath all the noise, beyond the scrolling, outside the comparison, is peace. Not the peace you buy. Not the peace you post. But the kind that doesn't shake. The kind that no algorithm can touch. That is the Stoic way. There's something sacred about being unseen. About doing the right thing without anyone knowing. About living well not for applause, but for alignment. In the world we live in, that almost sounds radical. Today, it's not enough to live, you're expected to document. To share. To prove. A quiet moment of joy becomes a photo. A thought becomes a caption. A sunset becomes a backdrop for your followers. And bit by bit, life becomes performance. But a Stoic doesn't perform. A Stoic lives. Because virtue, the highest goal in Stoicism, cannot be broadcast. It can only be embodied. You don't become better by being seen doing good. You become better by choosing what is right, even when no one notices. Especially when no one notices. So ask yourself, if I couldn't show this to anyone, would I still do it? Would I still care? Would it still matter? That question is a compass. It points you back to the truth. To the actions that are truly yours. Not borrowed. Not for likes. Not for validation. But for the quiet dignity of being in harmony with yourself. This is the antidote to comparison, alignment. When you're aligned, with your values, with your nature, with your deeper reason for living, you no longer need to look sideways. You stop caring how fast someone else is going. You stop needing to match their path. Because you're finally walking your own. And it's not about ego. It's about peace. That deep, unshakable peace that comes from knowing who you are, and acting like it. Because you can't fake inner peace. You can fake confidence. You can fake success. You can even fake happiness. But you can't fake being at home with yourself. That's something you either build, or abandon. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every day that death was near. Not to be morbid, but to be awake. To strip away the nonsense. To remember that time is slipping through our fingers like sand, and every moment spent comparing, performing, pretending, is a moment lost. And isn't that what we're really afraid of? Not falling behind in the algorithm, but falling behind in life? Missing the chance to be real. To be present. To love fully. To act bravely. To live without apology. You don't have to reject technology to live this way. You don't have to disappear. But you do have to wake up. Wake up to how often you trade your attention for emptiness. Wake up to how many of your thoughts are echoes of someone else's life. Wake up to how many of your choices are shaped by fear, fear of missing out, fear of being forgotten, fear of not being enough. And then, take that fear and meet it with action. Not dramatic action. Not the kind you post. But quiet, consistent, courageous steps toward your own values. Put your phone down and go for a walk, not to track your steps, but to feel your feet. Call someone, not to tell them what you've achieved, but to ask how they're doing. Write, not to go viral, but to know your own thoughts. Breathe, not to be productive, but because you're alive. That's the revolution. Not loud. Not flashy. But rooted. Real. Stoicism isn't about suppressing your emotions. It's about becoming the kind of person who is not ruled by them. Who feels deeply, but isn't thrown off course. Who is capable of joy, sorrow, triumph, and failure, and remains intact. And maybe that's what's missing in today's world, integrity. Not as a moral badge, but as a lived experience, of being whole, undivided, consistent. Imagine if your public life and your private life were the same. Imagine if what you posted reflected what you truly lived. Imagine if you no longer needed applause to feel real. That is possible. But it starts with a hard truth: you don't need to be seen. You need to be free. Free from the need to impress. Free from the pressure to conform. Free from the story that tells you that happiness is out there, always somewhere else. The Stoics taught us that everything we need is already within us. Strength? It's already in you. Clarity? It's in you. Peace? In you. But you have to stop looking away. You have to stop scrolling past yourself. You want to win this inner war? Then put the phone down. Look inward. Sit with yourself long enough to remember what actually matters. You were not born to chase. You were born to build. And rebuild. And build again. Your character. Your values. Your soul. And one day, you'll look around and realize, you didn't lose yourself in this age of noise and comparison. You found yourself. Right here. In silence. In simplicity. In stillness. And that's more powerful than anything you'll ever post.